to Creature Features Podcast. Coming soon to Miami Fox Streaming.
Thanks to Warlock and Hellraiser, the horror genre is hot again.
Isn't that something?
Now, from the critically acclaimed director of Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, comes The Borrower, a new kind of horror film.
There ain't nobody gonna believe this.
An alien serial killer from another universe comes to Earth.
You are weird. Weird.
It's a monster.
And Ray Don Chong is the detective who must find him.
Oh my God.
Not since Reanimator has there been such a movie. The Borrower, the ultimate head trip.
Kinda cute. Kinda.
John McNaughton's The Borrower.
Shocker is a fucking terrifying movie. Like, that movie fucking works.
No! Not again!
Did the studios in the 80s get a little lazy and money hungry sometimes? Sure.
No more Mr. Nice Guy.
Maybe that's a hot take, but studios are there to make money.
My, we are turning into a little monster, aren't we?
There were toys, there were games, there was all sorts of media and merch. Freddy Mania was fully alive.
They were treating the franchises like an old, microwave burrito, just cheap, fast, and not satisfying to any of us. One thing I will say.
Elaborate. So, okay, maybe that's a little weird, but still a really, really cool death scene.
And it was awkward. And it was like, your uncle saying like a bad joke during Thanksgiving dinner, and it just, the whole family just now is just looking down at their plate going like, well, we still love them.
That's a dead man's hand.
Like, you don't know this dude and he's walking around in a fucking trench coat and a fedora, and you're like, Halloween, I guess. And he's a stranger, though.
Straight to video, motherfuckers.
Damn right.
Now for the feature presentation.
Greetings, fellow insomniacs, and welcome to another episode of the Creature Features Podcast from Miami Fox Streaming. I am your host. My name is Chunky Larry, and today we're going to be looking at a film that I never expected to cover on this show. And it's weird because you think this is a horror movie podcast. It's called Creature Features. This seems like it would be right up my alley, but it is not one that I would immediately pull up. It's not one that I would immediately say, hey, let's talk about this. And that's kind of the cool thing about what I'm doing with the show this time, is by having guests on who I admire and having them bring in movies that I wouldn't normally pick. I'm getting to kind of expand my vocabulary in terms of the things that I discuss, and this is going to be an interesting conversation. The person that I have on the show this week is somebody that, if you follow me on TikTok, you've seen me kind of joust with words back and forth, and he skews a slight bit younger than me, but I think that we are kindred spirits in a way that is really exciting, and I'm really pleased to be able to say, from the horror movie Mafia, Mr. Dom Pena, how you doing, my boy?
I am doing great, Larry. Thanks for having me on. I can't wait to get into this and really sink our teeth into it, if you will.
Yeah, and what we're going to be sinking our teeth into is the 2010 film, The Wolfman.
She exerts enormous power, doesn't she?
Do you believe in curses?
darkest hours of hell lie before you. Run free. Kill or be killed. It is glorious, isn't it?
John, I gotta ask, what made you pick the Wolfman?
Well, the new Wolfman just came out, and I recently revisited the 2010 one, and I really enjoy it. And I think I feel like it gets a lot of. I mean, it's definitely not without its flaws. It's not a perfect movie, but I think it's really enjoyable, and it's a really underrated werewolf movie. And basically, with the new movie coming out, it made me revisit it, and I really enjoy it.
Now, did you go see the Blumhouse version of the Wolfman?
I did, yes.
And did you like it?
No, I thought it looked like I don't know, like a wrong turn inbred werewolf that like needed some Rogaine or something. I don't know, I don't know what's going on.
Fair enough. And that's been kind of the consensus with a lot of people within horror talk. And whenever I have somebody from the world of horror talk here, I like to give them just kind of a second to kind of say when they got into the app and when they found the community and what the community means to them. And that is what I want to hear from you right now.
Yeah, I got into the app. I don't know. I think it's about like a year, maybe a year and change from this moment. And when I first started, I just really enjoyed horror movies, and I never really knew. Like I thought TikTok, like it was my sister dancing on it, or I really wasn't involved in TikTok much, so I didn't really know what to expect. And honestly, the community and all the people that I met, including yourself and many other people, I was shocked that there was such a sense of community of like-minded people that, enjoy watching horror movies, enjoy discussing stuff. Even if you don't agree, you could banter on why you don't agree. And that whole thing was so new to me. Like I don't really have many friends that are as avid into horror as all of us are in horror talk. And honestly, it's one of the best things I've ever had happen to me in my life because I got to meet so many cool people that I now have the pleasure of calling friends. So, it's been incredible so far.
Let's get into this film. We are going to be talking about, of course, and I had mentioned it before, the 2010 film, The Wolfman, and this is the remake of the Lon Chaney Jr. film, and it is starring Benicio del Toro. But before we get into talking about it, there's one thing that we do. We go to the world of IMDb, we grab a synopsis. So this is the synopsis for 2010's The Wolfman. In this remake of The Wolfman, 1941, Lawrence Talbot, Benicio del Toro, is lured back to his family estate to investigate a savage murder of his brother Ben, Simon Morellis, by a bloodthirsty creature of legend. There, Talbot must confront his childhood demons that came from his mother's death when he was a child. While Lawrence is searching, he is attacked and marked by the beast. There is a price to pay. Lawrence is now cursed. On every full moon, he becomes a werewolf. Lawrence is now in hiding, and his faith is in the hang? And his faith is in the hang of kill or be killed. His brother's grieving fiancée, Gwen, Emily Blunt, who seeks to find a way to save Lawrence. That was by Emoger 1. And if you give your name, we give you credit. What in the shit, Emoger? His faith is in the hang.
Yeah, that was really well. I know that. I think he tried to get a little too Shakespearean there. It didn't work out too well.
Does he mean that they're gonna get hanged? Because that would make sense, but no,
maybe the werewolf is hung.
Yeah, well,
maybe that's what he meant.
Yeah. Red Rocket. There's a game that we play on this show called Synopsis Obscura, and in Synopsis Obscura, I ask of my guest to summarize the film in a way that doesn't give everything away. And since you picked the movie, you get to play. So, Dom, give me a brief recommendation or synopsis for 2010's The Wolfman.
Our main character, Lawrence, is brought back home to try to investigate the mysterious death around his brother. He pulls his best Sherlock Holmes impression and gets more teeth than he bargained for.
This film is directed by Joe Johnston. Joe Johnston, he directed Captain America: The First Avenger, but he also directed The Rocketeer. I don't know if you've ever seen The Rocketeer, but it is like, when I was a kid, that was my fucking movie. It came out in the early 90s, and it's, this dude, like, the whole story is this dude with just a jetpack and he's fighting Nazis and shit. And it's like it's in the vein of like Dick Tracy and The Shadow, and it feels very much in that serial era of storytelling where there were these heroic heroes, and it feels very much of an era. And I think that Joe Johnston tends to work better when he's working in these era kind of stories, and that's what this is. It's an era piece, and it's a period piece, while also kind of sending up the original Wolfman. And here's a question: did you watch the original Wolfman before you watched this one, or?
I watched the original one with my grandma, and I loved it like years ago. It's my favorite Universal movie. It's one of my favorites. I think it's beautifully done.
And so, watching the movie this time, did you watch it again just kind of have kind of an idea of it, or?
I just like the 2010 one. I just revisited it just to get. I knew what's going to happen, just to get some extra, just get the juices flowing so everything comes back. I know the story. I might miss something here and there, but it was nice to get a little refreshment on it.
I ended up watching, because you said the 2025 Blumhouse version and the 2010. I did the opposite. I watched the 41 version and the 2010. So I feel like we've got a little bit of everything in this conversation. And I gotta say, man, this is, in terms of remakes, as far as remakes are concerned, this does a fair job of trying to capture the spirit of the original. And they set it in the same time period. They're playing with the idea of the gypsies and fear of strangers, and all of those elements are in this. But to kind of pad it out, I think they add this subplot with Anthony Hopkins' character and Benicio del Toro's character, where there's this, I don't know if it's guilt on del Toro's part or on Hopkins's part, though. But there's this trauma that stems from his childhood. It's father-son relationship, and it's a strained relationship. And I'm almost of the belief that this doesn't need to be there. And so, what's your favorite werewolf movie? Let's go with that. Let's start with that question.
My favorite werewolf movie, that's a tough one. It would probably be the original Wolfman or Dog Soldiers. What about you?
For me, it's probably Company of Wolves.
I haven't seen that one.
It's a really good movie. It's a kind of obscure 80s werewolf movie, but like there was this run in the 80s of werewolf films with like American Werewolf in London, The Howling, Silver Bullet,
Yeah.
and Company of Wolves, and there's more. Like there's an entire franchise of Howling films, and I just I feel like for something that's supposed to be really scary, that there is very little there's very little fucking focus on trying to make this scary idea scary.
I don't want to jump ahead too much, but the hunting scene in the forest, muzzle, when the muzzle flash, and you see like the silhouette of him, like little nod to their, the throwback. But like, if they went to that more of that route, I don't know. I know what you mean. Like they didn't go delve deeper enough into the actual scareness, like just the scare factor. I know what you mean for sure.
So like when I look at this film, and when I look at a couple of like werewolf films, it depends on the perspective of where the story is being told. You know what I mean? And so like in Silver Bullet, it's being told from the perspective of these children who have this situation that's happening. So the werewolf is a looming presence. And in American Werewolf in London, it's told from the perspective of the person who's being affected by the werewolf. And so what's horrific about that is the vulnerability and the lack of control to succumb to this curse, and the transformation in and of itself is horrific. It's painful. It's forced against their will, and so the idea of lycanthropy, is that how it's pronounced, lycanthropy, is a horrifying idea. And I think it stems from this mindset of tapping into primal instincts, and us being just this far removed from animals. And we are animals, but we wear clothing,
we're sophisticated
ass, we throw our garbage in a fucking receptacle, and then it magically disappears and we think nothing of it. So like, I just don't understand what's supposed to be scary about this movie.
It has a couple of moments, but they don't. I don't know the person who wrote the film, but
it was actually written by
people. Oh, okay. Well, that makes maybe they didn't talk to each other while writing it. Maybe that was it.
Where's my father? Where's my father? Where is my father?
With film, when you're telling a story, you want to have a character that serves as a conduit to the audience. And in this, it feels like the conduit is intended to be Lawrence Talbot, Benicio del Toro. And I think that had they told the story from Gwen, Emily Blunt's character, that it may have worked a little bit better, because then there's because if you're telling the story through Talbot's perspective, and Talbot is like grappling with the idea of something that he wasn't aware of, it like seeing something and it being so traumatic that it like resided in the back of his brain, and it all for like the course of his life has always kind of been there. And the idea of repressed emotions can be horrifying, but it almost doesn't commit to that either. So it's like it's a little this way, a little this way, a little this way. And when you serve multiple masters, you appease them partially. You get what I mean? Like, what do
I
you think
totally
about
get
that?
it, and I think that would be. I think that what you said, if it was told from Emily Blunt's Gwen's character point of view, like if you think about it, she's already going through trauma with the death of Benicio's brother. She's already going through that, and now she has to deal with the fact that her fiance, her husband's brother is now going through this. And then I feel like they would have added extra element that you would really care about, like like her going through all that trauma at once, and obviously her and Benicio's character Lawrence are building a connection, and she has to see basically him turn mad, and then if you think about it, she's not going to really have any connection left to the family, and that's gonna. I mean, her what is her life going to be after this movie ends? I felt like they could have played into that more, would have added another level that I think would have worked. So I think you were right about that.
And the CGI transformation, how did you feel about that?
I'm more of a practical person, special effect makeup. For what it was, I thought it looked pretty good for 2010. I thought it looked pretty cool. I mean, it wasn't perfect. I thought it looked good for what it was.
They hire Rick Baker to do the makeup effects for this film, and Rick Baker famously worked on American Werewolf in London, which boasts to this day one of the most amazing werewolf transformations to ever be captured on film. And that's all done with special makeup effects in camera. And they were going to go with that, but the studio said the audience isn't going to fucking jibe with that. Imagine, if you will, with 2010 money, the makeup effects to do a werewolf proper transformation, how much better it would have been. And
it would have changed the movie. It would have added an extra couple points on there.
It would have added a layer of tangibility that I think it doesn't have with this. And it when you're using special makeup effects, there's a way that it's shot, and it's shot kind of different than when you're using CGI. And so something like the hands, the bones kind of popping in and out of joints and like growing outwards, and like the feet growing outwards, it's able to be done in these single shots, and it's like, oh wow, okay, he's turning into a wolf. But when you're doing it with makeup effects, you have to cut, and so part of that is then you're shooting to get just the perfect shot of this thing happening, and so then it's much more detail specific, and then that in and of itself, it becomes part of the performance. Is this it's like a congruent, or not congruent, symbiotic relationship that the film has with its effects. And if the effects thrive, the film thrives, and if the effects suffer, the film suffers. And I think that is one of the things that hinders this film for me, because I remember I watched this back when it came out on DVD. I didn't go to the theaters to see it because I was kind of like anti-horror, modern horror for a long period of time, 2000 and 2020, somewhere in that ballpark. So I still watch horror, I rent it and get like the DVDs on certain shit. And this one I just checked out, and I thought it was pretty fucking good, especially comparatively to some of the other stuff that was happening around that same time, kind of peripherally. And I remember enjoying this more than I did this time around. So I think that some of the stuff suffers because of some of the choices that were made. So originally the story was written by the guy who did Seven and Sleepy Hollow. And then they ended up bringing another writer in who altered things because there was originally a different director than Joe Johnston who was attached to the film. He was okay with the script. And then right before they were getting ready to shoot, he dropped out. Joe Johnston comes in. He doesn't like the script as it is. So they bring in another writer and they change some stuff. So that also adds to it kind of being, a little all over the place.
Wonky.
Yeah. What was your favorite part of this film?
It's probably the hunt, like when the hunters are in the woods. That's probably my favorite scene of the whole movie. I think the most iconic shot of the film is when the hunter, the muzzle flash, and he's right behind him. He lights him up. Kind of a little nod to the old one. I thought that whole sequence was pretty cool. I loved the look when when it was in the special effect makeup, after it's been transformed. I thought that scene was really good, except for the CGI deer in that towards the end of that scene was whatever. But that would probably be my favorite. That whole sequence would probably be my favorite part of the film.
I really like Hugo Weaving in this movie.
Yeah.
And Hugo Weaving was actually the Red Skull in First Avenger because he was, again, Joe Johnston. So like they work really well together, and he plays a villain in this without actually being a villain, and his logic and his reasoning makes sense to me. And I also kind of enjoy the relationship between Benicio del Toro and Emily Blunt. I think Emily Blunt's great in this movie. I think that the atmosphere is rich. I love that they kept the gypsy element to it and it feeling like it's this gypsy curse and them trying to understand it. And, again, I watched the 41 film and then I watched this one, and I feel like they're good companion pieces to each other because you can appreciate some of the things that they were able to accomplish that they weren't in the 41 version. But I'm going to just say this, 41 version's a little bit more effective when it comes to the overall dread of being a werewolf and, like knowing that when that moon rises, you're helpless to combat this. But I don't know. How do you feel?
I love the original one. I think this was a valiant attempt of making a Hollywoodized bigger thing of it. I think it's a little bit too long in the tooth, no pun intended. I think I've seen both. The director's cut's even worse, the longer, and it's still pretty long. The one thing that I don't hear people talk about is I love Anthony Hopkins, but like for something, I really can't put my finger on it. He felt a little off in this movie for some reason to me. Like he was like, it's just Anthony. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but I don't know what it was. Like he's a phenomenal actor. I just feel like it was just so random for me.
Almost as if he's become kind of a caricature of himself at this point.
Yeah, that's probably what it is then. Like it just felt like he was like, oh, that's Anthony Hopkins. There it is.
I felt the same way with his performance in the film Titus. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I haven't seen that one.
It's visually pleasing, but it's just kind of
I would have liked like someone else in there, but like he didn't do a bad job or anything. It just I don't know. it was what it was. And
Mm.
but I wish it would have leaned more into the love story aspect, like with the grieving widow and Benicio. If they really would have hit that home a little bit more, I think it really would have made it a better film.
I think if they would have given that more time, it would have made it make more sense when it gets to the end. And
Yeah.
you build these relationships, but it's like there's between the moonrise and the moonfall, there's a lot that's left to be desired. But let's get into Reapers for this. Where are you coming in with a Reaper for this? 0 is the lowest, 5 is the highest.
I would give it 2.5. I think it's I think it's like average, not bad, but not, just decent.
Kind of
2.5
middle
out
of
of
the
5.
road.
Yeah.
I'm gonna probably come in about the same place. I'll go a little bit lower. I'm gonna go 2. I just like the makeup effects that Rick Baker does for the Wolfman itself are really impressive. The like skin ripping off the back is fucking excellent. There's some like lancing where like the claws just rip into somebody that
Yeah.
really fucking works. But I think as a picture it's kind of messy, and I think that's just too many cooks in the kitchen. Like if you settle on a director, you settle on a writer, you settle on a story, when you
Yeah.
start messing with that, you take away some of the good stuff. And I think that that's studio meddling, and studio meddling is the bane of most art at this point. And so
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's still very prevalent.
yeah. But we're gonna start getting out of here. So Dom, please tell people where they can find you, where you're gonna be putting your short film, all of that
Okay.
good stuff.
I used to be Horror Movie Mafia on TikTok. Now it's the Movie Mafia because I wanted to cover everything. And then on Instagram, it's the Movie Mafia with an underscore after it. So I'm on there. That's the only two social media apps that I'm on. If you want to see some of my crazy reviews or goofy videos, make sure to give me a follow. And it'll be to be determined on where the short films will be releasing. It'll probably be doing a festival run at first, so it won't be released to the public initially until after all that's done.
Fuck yeah, dude. That's awesome. If you guys are here just because of Dom, but you've enjoyed the conversation, want to find out more about the Creature Features podcast, first of all, thank you. Secondly, you can find us everywhere in the world of social media at CreaturePod. So Facebook.com/CreaturePod, at CreaturePod on Blue Sky, Threads, fucking TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all of the places it's at CreaturePod. It's really fucking easy for you to get. I think I'm also on Red Note. Cite in. But we are going to start wrapping up here. Want to thank again Miami Fox Streaming for housing us, giving us a place outside of YouTube. Again, you can always watch these episodes early on Miami Fox Streaming. They will release the following Friday on YouTube. But if you want to catch them early, that's the way you do it. You go to Miami Fox Streaming. You can download it on your Rokus or your smart TVs, or on your iTunes or Google Play stores. And when you use the promo code CreaturePod, you save yourself 15%. Want to thank Boxes for Mama again. Want to thank Sinister Brew Coffee again. These people keep the lights on, and of lights we are aplenty. There's all kinds of colors and shit. It's very festive over here. But we're gonna get out of here. So for Dom and for myself, again, my name is Chunky. This has been another episode of the Creature Features podcast from Miami Fox Streaming on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Listen with someone you trust.